A continuación, invitamos a la señora Yolanda Carlos, quien tiene a su cargo el tema STEAM, Cambiando la Educación en América. Yolanda Carlos es profesora principal de la Facultad de Educación de Pacific Oaks. Es responsable por la organización de California State Teacher Initiative Conference y es miembro del Comité de Desarrollo y Evaluación, el Senado Académico y el Comité de Revisión de la Currícula de Pacific Oaks. Además es directora ejecutiva de una escuela sin fines de lucro, el High Desert Early Childhood Center, y ha servido como miembro del Consejo Directivo y vicepresidente de la organización A Better Way, enfocada a ayudar a familias que han experimentado violencia doméstica por medio de la educación y formación para una mejor calidad de vida.
Buenas tardes. Dear friends, on behalf of the International Congress for Educators, Innovation and Education, I greet all of the organizers, participants, and guests. And it's my great pleasure to thank you for the honor of taking time to spend with us today to learn a little bit more about STEAM. This conference deals with the role of innovation in education and the international concepts. In this session, we will see how it fits into the world of education and then how it transfers into real world of work. Pacific Oaks College of Education is located in lovely Pasadena, California. And I am so honored to be here in Peru to learn about your country, to experience your culture, and to say that I've just immensely enjoyed it, and I thank you for your hospitality and for your time. First, we're going to be watching a video, and then I will be explaining why. This is how we see children sometimes. They're bored, they're confused, they're not quite sure what they need to do. engaged that we're losing them. Because most often, the teachers that are teaching them do not know how to use the technology that their students are using every day on a daily basis. We understand that in order to engage children, to help them to critically think, we need to change how we teach, how we think. We need to get on board and to step into their world. Many of them were born, have been born, when technology every 2 to 3 months is changing rapidly. We have to change with them. Critical thinking becomes engaging and meaningful when the subject matter, especially science and mathematics, instruction is concentrated on creative, real-world problem solving. STEAM education is the response to this. This is how America is beginning to look at how we can engage children, how we can engage learners of all ages. STEAM is perspective shift to understanding learning contextually for an ever-changing personal and global education development that is standards-based, that is reality-based, that is personally relevant, learning that engages a learner in grappling with complex information and scaffolds their learning through trial and error. STEAM educators will have more diversification of teaching methods in engaging collaborative ways through budget-based learning, thematic instruction, rubric-based portfolios, and process through teamwork. The 21st century requires people to work with other people collaboratively in teams. Both teachers and students will have a deeper, broader understanding of matching learning objectives and goals to a variety of learning modalities and methods. And tomorrow in the workshop, I'll be going over multiple intelligences and how those are applied in the classroom. STEAM is a direct response to students struggling with mathematics and science. As Bernardo discussed earlier, it's the science educators that are saying this is the response, this is what has to happen. They're saying we must look at things in a different way, in the way we present them and the way we teach them. Pacific Oaks College of Education has a STEAM specialization, where early childhood educator teachers will be exposed to the methodology, the teaching strategies, and the pedagogy to add to their repertoire and be able to enter into the profession of teaching well-equipped to handle the learning needs for students in the 21st century. Both art and science are inquiry-based. They ask questions. They ask essential questions of learners. They also help learners to discover themselves. Because when we look at our learning and we look at discovery, it always has an element of discovering ourselves. As we discover ourselves, we are able to delve deeper into whatever subject matter it is that we are beginning to learn. It will also deal with subject matter in a collaborative and in a new, innovative way with application to the real world. These are all skills that you see up here that are necessary to become successful in the 21st century. Bernardo talked about different things, and I have a few stories that I want to add in here. I'm not quite sure where I'll say them. There are a couple of stories that fit beautifully. And before I move into how it looks, there are two stories and two things that you can look up later on your own through YouTube, because YouTube has wonderful things. One is about a little boy named Kane's Arcade. Kane's Arcade is about a little boy who spent a summer with his father in his auto parts store. He began to use boxes to create things. He created an arcade that caused a world revolution. People from around the world, when they travel to Los Angeles, make it a point to go see his cardboard arcade. They created a GoFundMe that has over $240,000 for his college fund. Through art, through creativity, through imagination. The second story you can look up also on YouTube. It's about some high school students who created a club after school. It's in Texas because they worked with their families early in the morning in the fields before they went to school. After school, they had to go back home to help their parents in the fields again. Then they could wash up, and then they could go to their club that they created for technology. They felt that they had what they needed to be able to be successful. They asked their teacher if they could compete in a competition. The teacher said yes. They came up with the money, they came up with the materials for them, and they entered. What they didn't know is that they were competing against Yale, Harvard, and other universities that were heavily invested with money from Shell and other large corporations. Long story short, beautiful YouTube video. The high school students won. And they received scholarships for their education. However, they had to go to court and fight to keep them because they were illegal immigrants. Imagine that one. However, they had everything they needed to supersede and to succeed. And in the end, they won, and they are university students. It's amazing what we can do with art, with science, and with mathematics, with a dream, and with creativity. Music is also a hook that we can use to relate to. I would like for you to just take some time right now, talk to somebody, and think of a song or a favorite play you learned when you were a child by a parent or someone. We can all think of a song, or a lullaby, or a finger play. I know them both in Spanish and in English, and I remember them. And it was just a small thing, but music hooks us. Take some time and think of a song or a lullaby or a finger play and talk to someone right now. Okay. Music engages the brain, and it engages our working memory. When you hear children, maybe they're listening to the popular music that's out there, they may not know the words, but they catch the phrases that keep on, and those are the ones that they sing, because that's the working memory. It activates the brain, and it increases and reinforces the memory for specific learning. We can even call this activation for phonological or of a phonological loop of learning that can be easily accessed when we learn it through music. Working memory helps us to make sense of the world and it builds on prior learning experiences. And it helps us to predict what may happen next. To process learning, we need to immediately process what's going on. We ask ourselves, what would I like to know? Maybe you came in today and said, what would I like to know? What might I learn? What's going on? You will ask yourself, how does this apply to me? How can I use this? Over time, we need to move away from those questions, and we need to think more elaboratively, more illustriously, using our imagination and our creativity, and always asking, what if? What if, just like those students in Texas, what if, just like Cain, in Cain's story, what if I use these boxes? What if I think I can make things using tubes? What if I think I can compete? I might lose, I may not gain anything, but what if I do? Functional. Think of the first three letters. Fun. Functional. Learning should be fun. It should be functional. We need to focus on natural ways of learning and problem solving. And STEAM helps us to solve things through the lens of the arts and human behavior and prototyping. Children, by nature, are creative. Many of us have already seen this painting. We're familiar with the painting. It's Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper. What many of us may not know about this masterpiece is what we're witnessing is more than art. Leonardo da Vinci did a study of human emotions in this masterpiece. In there, he has portrayed the revelation of one will betray me. We see emotions of sadness, of acceptance. Sadness would be John. Acceptance is Jesus. Understanding and accepting. Then there was protest from Philip in his face. And then we can see anger. Peter. Peter was impulsive. And then we see contempt. Judas grabbing the money bag. Additionally, what we don't understand about Leonardo da Vinci is he used mathematical principles as he developed his paintings. When we look at the painting, he has grouped them in groups of 3. But before I get into that, he has also used geometry. He used the understanding of the triangle to align the viewer's eyes to what he wanted you to see, for the symbolism, for the psychological complexity, and for the use of perspective, for the dramatic focus. Group 1, we see 3 that are surprised: Bartholomew, James, and Andrew. Group 2, Judas Iscariot, Peter, and John. But John is looking like he's going to faint. He's swooning. Group 3, Thomas, who's upset. James, who's shocked. Philip, who's questioning, like, what? Group 4, we have Jude, Matthew, and Simon looking for an answer, saying, what are you talking about? We don't understand. So, in a painting, we have mathematics. We even have the study of faces, psychology behind it. A different perspective to look at art. But we can bring that into lessons as well. Da Vinci was a genius. He understood mathematics in a different way that we need to bring back into teaching, into learning, and into children's lives. The Virtuvian man is sometimes known as the canon of proportions or the proportion man, because he understood this is a blend of art, science, and mathematics, and relating man to nature because there is a ratio. So the mathematics, when we look at our body, and if you want to know, if you put your foot between the inside of your elbow to your wrist, that is the exact size of your foot. We are mathematically created, and many of you I see nodding your heads, you know. Leonardo knew this. We've moved away from these things, and we need to bring them back. He also has a circle around, because what he was depicting in the Vitruvian Man was the golden ratio. And the results match his painting and his Vitruvian Man perfectly. We see it again in the Mona Lisa. Da Vinci's divine proportions in art was exemplified when we look at Mona Lisa. We're looking at the golden ratio in vertical dimensions, going up and down. From her head to her face, from her garment and neckline, it's understood that Mona Lisa embodies an intentional golden ratio. He understood that the golden ratio and the mathematics of it is pleasing to our eye. Fibonacci is another one. These are good to look up on YouTube on your own. They make great reading, great research. The Fibonacci sequence is a sequence of numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 12, 34. The next number is found by adding the first two numbers. And it continues and it grows. When we look at this here, I'm trying to see which one is the arrow. Oh, here we go. So we can see that hurricane here, this was Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy in the United States did a lot of destruction. It happened in 2012, and it was an Atlantic hurricane during hurricane season. It was the second most costliest hurricane in the United States history, and it is a great example of the Fibonacci circle. It started out small, it kept growing and growing and growing in the numbers that Fibonacci had discovered a long time ago. To find out more, you can do Google research on your own, and you can also look up, if you have not already, the Khan Academy. K-H-A-N. Academy is an excellent place. So when we look at the Fibonacci, we see it all throughout nature. So what we're going to see is examples of the Fibonacci sequence in nature. So in the novel shell. And what does this have to do with children and learning? We can bring these into the classroom. We can bring examples, real-life examples, for them to begin to look at, to experiment with, and to discover. Our universe is a perfect example of the Fibonacci sequence as well, the golden ratio. It expresses it perfectly. We see it all throughout nature. We see it within art. We see it within the sunflower and the seeds and the patterns. We can also see it when we look at trees and the way they grow, the way they stretch out. It is always an example of the perfect golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence. It's all throughout nature. It's even in our DNA as humans. There's been this mathematical principle, this design, this divine design all throughout that we've ignored, that we don't bring into the classroom, that we don't discuss. So the DNA molecule is the program for all life, but yet it is the golden ratio section. It measures 34 angstrograms long by 21 angstrograms wide for each full cycle of its double helix spiral. Golden ratio is also known as pi, P-H-I. It's the ratio of consecutive numbers in the Fibonacci sequence as it approaches a number known as the golden ratio, or also known as pi. A golden spiral formed in such a manner is similar to the Fibonacci spiral that can be found by tracing the seeds of a sunflower from the center outward. So, what does this have to do with learning? We have to look at what nourishes imagination. How can we look at things differently? Imagination is taking the time to wonder, to be still, to imagine, to ask yourself the question, what if? What does this mean? As adults, we're passionate about education, and we need to nourish and encourage imagination in play, because play is also learning. Interestingly enough, in the United States, we have the standards, Common Core standards, and high stakes testing. Those two things together are totally, completely against creativity and imagination. So we have to think outside of the box so that we can bring those two together in a marriage, so to speak, so that it works. We need to make sure that we're not squeezing out wonder and that we're not increasing the pressure for high-stake testing that does not measure intelligence or individual learning. What does measure intelligence, what does measure individual learning is that excitement to go on, to continue learning, to create, to produce, to experiment, to take risks. Fred Rogers had a PBS show in America. He was a great American television personality. He was a puppeteer, an educator, a minister. He was a composer, a songwriter, an author, and he was an activist. Here's a quote from Fred Rogers. When I say it's you I like, I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can ever see, hear, or touch. That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humankind cannot survive. Love that conquers hate. Peace that rises triumphant over war. And justice that proves more powerful than greed. When we give children this, we open a new world to them. And Fred Rogers was able to do that for many. This quote invokes thought and imagination and allows feelings to creatively find a provocation to express themselves within the learner. He also said, play is often talked about as if it was a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. And in our society in the United States, we hear people say, adults say, I work hard, but I play hard. But I want my children to learn hard. But we need to understand that play is work, whether you're an adult or a child. We do learn from it. This is something we need to strive to preserve in the era of testing for a data-driven society. Metacognition. Metacognition is an awareness of one's own thought process, to be able to think about thinking. For children and for learners, it's giving them the time to think about thinking, to reflect, to to be able to think, what does this mean to me? How can I apply it? Or to ask, why do we believe something is right? And what is leading us to think that it's right and to come to that conclusion that this is right, that this is good? And then checking for understanding to see if indeed we are right, or if we're mistaken, we need to rethink instead of just moving forward with what we're learning without thinking about what we're learning and then asking, is this true? Is this right? Essential questioning helps the thinker to think about their thinking. Essential questions move away from asking children or the learner so that we can get the right answer. We want to move away from that. Essential questions allow learners to think about their thinking process. For example, we can ask, what did you notice? What helped you to figure that out? What's another way you could solve that? How else can we look at this? Asking questions that help them to think about what they're saying and why they said it and how they came to that conclusion. When we look at these up here, these are all character traits that are associated with being prepared for the increasingly complex work demands of the 21st century. Like the video said before, the one that we watched, most of our learners today are going to have as many between 14 and 38 jobs in their lifetime. They're going to have to learn how to change, reinvent themselves, and think about how to solve things in a variety of different ways if they're going to succeed and be successful and live a happy life, as we're saying. Because ultimately, that's what life was meant to be. For us to live to our fullest, we have to do it through our thinking, through our creativity, and giving it, not just for ourselves and keeping it, giving it to the children around us, to our children, to your families, to those that you touch each and every day. Because whether you have children or not, you're going to be around them all of your lives. So here we can see project-based learning. We can see creative team process going on. We can see children thinking out of the box. We can see them exploring. So most often when we see this, the children will have, in the classroom, have decided, they have laid out a plan on paper, talked about it with their teacher, and have discussed what they're going to make, how tall, how high it will be. They may use measurements to do this. They will go out into the yard. They will begin to create. They will evaluate and analyze to see, did it turn out? They will come back into the classroom. They may take photos, and they will come back in and they will make a decision after they've analyzed and evaluated. If it worked, why did it work? If it did not, what else do I need to do? It also helps them to make connections between the mathematics and the sciences. Children provided with the opportunities to test their hypotheses. Here we see children using ramps and measuring using time. So they're timing the cars to see how fast. First they're going to predict. Then they're going to check to see, was my prediction correct? Was it not correct? How fast will the car travel if I use varying degrees with the ramp? So this is what STEAM looks like in a preschool classroom. If we can grab their attention at young ages that you have them. They become interested in math and in science without realizing that that's what they're interested in. In the slide before, we saw girls. Girls interested in the math and in the sciences, in predicting, in investigating, analyzing, evaluating, and then going back and recreating. That is what science is. That is what art is. It's that inquiry. It's that questioning. 30 years ago, my education in the United States, and perhaps yours, included a rich experience of mathematics, science, language arts, but it also included something that in today's primary education and secondary education in the United States no longer has, is the fine arts, the humanities. They took it out. Why? A lot of times you can't test it. 1, 2, funding, money. I had the ability to experience music, dance, and art in a variety of ways. That helped to round me out, to be able to see possibilities, to be able to creatively solve things, and to love and fall in love with the arts and learning. I think that as we take that away, it's harder to engage them. But we need to bring that back for our students so they can discover who they are and why learning is important and integral to them. Pacific Oaks College School of Education's STEAM specialization will provide teachers with the pedagogy, methodology necessary to prepare them as educators in the 21st century to better prepare learners to enter into the demands of the 21st century workplace. STEAM specialization provides the same opportunity for learners at a time when the economy and the jobs are changing rapidly. The United States is ranked 27th in math, 20th in science. This is not acceptable. Of 34 member nations belonging to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development of a group of industrialized Western, European, and North American countries, and to quote 7th District candidate Jack Trammell, he says, I propose that we begin with education in order to create a workforce for the future. Most people are familiar with the accountability movement in education called testing, but few will dispute the fact that we need to keep the educational bar set high and push for progress in science, technology, engineering, and math, where we lag behind other countries. Pacific Oaks College School of Education STEAM specialization is a response to the call for action. The United States Department of Education and the National Science Foundation, as Bernardo said, are calling experts to make the case for adding arts to STEM, changing it from STEM to STEAM, with a goal of creativity and engagement to ignite a passion for mathematics and science through the arts. Emotion and learning. John Dewey made an eloquent plea for the education of the whole child. When we educate, we need to look at the person holistically, the whole person. Emotion research is the catalyst in STEAM education and engages learners in using more neural fibers in the brain center through the use of logical, rational, centered learning. Students faced with fear, frustration, and worry are not going to be able to learn their very best. They will not make the learning connections they need to. Charlie Brown is a favorite cartoon character. Throughout history, in his character's life, he struggles with Lucy, who always pulls the ball away from him as he runs to kick it. This is a perfect example of disequilibrium and how insecurity can be developed over time when we are frustrated or we're worried about testing. Sadness. We all need to have a sense of belonging in order to feel safe in our learning environment, to be able to take the risks that learning requires of learners. Shame. Shame is the root of dysfunction. Embarrassment is the emotion that helps us to follow rules, and it helps us to live in society, not wanting to be embarrassed and lose face. However, many of us have experienced shame at the hands of a teacher that shamed us in front of a classroom and our peers, and that is a barrier to learning. It can cause someone mental health disorders that may erupt in domestic violence, substance abuse, road rage, being a bully in the schoolyard. We need to understand these things, and when we teach, we need to teach to the whole child. Students who face fear, frustration, despair, worry, sadness, or shame all lose memory, reasoning skills, and the capacity to make a connection with relationships and learning. STEAM creates an environment that enhances social, emotional learning, and social, emotional learning is the piece that is missing in today's learning. America needs STEAM. The 21st century learners need STEAM. Pacific Oaks College provides the call to action for employers for 21st century skills and the work habits of a lifetime. Motivation, the ability to contribute to society responsibly and ethically. A sense of self-worth, the social skills needed for positive relationships, the adaptability, creative thinking, and problem solving. I have one more YouTube. This is what STEAM could look like. Been built so that it can go over ramps? Will it topple over? All experiments. These are all Legos. Legos that preschoolers use. Of an experiment that was used on the moon. We have a vehicle that moves over the moon exactly like this. It was started through imagination, through creativity. Ignite the imagination of a child if you gave them for Christmas a kit like that. They could fall in love with math, science, and engineering in a natural way through play. I have another one here. I don't know that I want to show this one. How many more minutes do I have? 15? So, this is play. In an adult world, people pay to go here. It's made and created, all using Legos.
Inspired by the real-life stories of the people of Lego City. The story begins as Lego City's talented writers come up with the next great cinematic masterpiece. Though getting the producers to agree on what that is can be a little difficult. Our casting process is very thorough. Our stars make up the best talent in the business. The sets are what bring a film to life, and our builders strive to create the most convincing. Is that one supposed to be there? And finally, the director makes sure everything comes together just right. The lights are up. The cameras are on. Lego City Studio is ready for action. Sorry.
Lego City is like Disneyland. Think about children using their Lego kits at home, making things, and then going to see a real Lego City where adults ride the rides. That brings to life the real world of imagination for a child. I think I have one more video. Let's see. Yes, this is it. This is a video. Little bits. Okay. If it doesn't want to go, I'll explain it. So little bits are tiny, tiny pieces that are electronics that preschoolers use. So these tiny electronics, you can YouTube little bits, and they connect together, and they can create something that flies. They can create something that will turn on a switch in your home. They can create a variety of inventions, as many as a child can invent, create, and imagine. Those are used in preschools as well to help children understand the connections of electricity and engineering to create things, to make them move, much like the Lego car that we saw, but on a smaller scale that they can use, and there's no worries about breaking things. It is meant for tiny hands. So STEAM, when we think about it, it's investing in children. And the STEAM specialization, the benefits of it is in investing in early childhood education, and they are clear. At-risk children are more likely to enter school ready to learn when they learn in a variety of modalities which STEAM will provide. School readiness leads to school success, and it's a decrease in crime, teenage pregnancies, delinquency, and substance abuse, because they have found a way to feel connected to learning, to others, and more importantly, to themselves. The benefits of an early childhood experience is future success and resiliency. The resiliency to push forward when we have many barriers. And in life is going to give us barriers. We have to give our learners what I like to call the 3 R's. Help them to learn to be responsible for their learning, to be resourceful, to look for the things that they might need, much like, and hopefully you will go in to YouTube and you will look up Payne's Arcade, much like Payne did. He was resourceful. He created an arcade made out of boxes, and now he has over $240,000 sitting, waiting for him to go on to college because of his creativity and his imagination and his resourcefulness. And the last R, resiliency. Resiliency to push past barriers, to push past failures, because we all have them. Think about it. Edison invented the light bulb. Do you know how many times he failed? Over 100. He never gave up. If he had given up, we would not have light today. Think of a baby, a child, a toddler. How many times do they fall on their face when they're learning to walk? Do they give up? No. They get up and they keep trying again. We tend to give up too easily. I leave you with the 3 R's. The responsibleness, to learn, to push forward. The resourcefulness, to find the things that you need, whether it be resource of a person or persons that can help you. Whatever resources that you need, be resourceful. Look around. Look to see who you have. Who will support you? And then the resiliency to push forward, to reach your goals in life. And then to give these 3 R's to the children around you, your family, and in your lives. And I thank you. I don't know how much more time I have. 5 more minutes. I thank you for your time. I don't want to spend more time. I want to keep you engaged. I see that you've been interested in STEAM. STEAM is amazing when it's used properly. I encourage you to go online, go to YouTube, and research. Just look for those students in Texas. They are amazing. They're going to actually make a movie about them. And then Payne's Arcade. Thank you very much.